Hi there. My name's Charlie Quirk. I'm a strategist here in San Francisco. This deck is a little bit of a shelter-in-place labor of love. I'm not much of a sourdough baker, so started noodling on insights from some of the greatest films and worst films of all time, and put this into a presentation, and hope you enjoy it. So straight out of the gate, I want to call an audible. It's not actually 50. We're only going to go through 5 today. But hopefully you get the gist of the process and hopefully you find it useful. So just to start with, aren't movies awesome? I think they're incredibly important. I think they're the most valuable, mainstream art form that exists in culture today. When you think of how pervasive they are, when you think of how the budgets they get, when you think about how many people view them and how many people discuss them, I think they are the most vital art form that exists today. And this quote from the late, great Roger Ebert, I think, encapsulates it very nicely. We live in a box of space and time. Movies are windows into its walls. They allow us to enter other minds, not simply in the sense of identifying with the characters, but by seeing the world as another person sees it. When you think about it, it is rare to be able to go into a dark room for 2 hours and experience a very oblique view of the world compared to the one that you experience on the daily. And I think this is remarkable. I think movies are going to have enduring relevance and enduring appeal because of this reality. They're less lauded in terms of the cultural significance or artistic significance of books, but they share many things in common with books. They're a great source of human insight. They reveal human truths, behaviors, attitudes, motivations, and they can challenge the way we think. But they've also got many advantages that books don't have. For example, they're relatively cheap, they're quick to consume, 2 hours to watch roughly, give or take. They're easy to digest and they're easy to discuss. I love books, don't get me wrong, we all love books. But so often you can't find that. So you read a great book, there aren't the people you want to talk to it about. Movies, on the other hand, there is a drumbeat of regular movies that people are always going to be discussing no matter what. You don't have to join a movie club to discuss movies. They're more mainstream. So what's a movie insight? Well, it's not a log line. A log line is well known as a synopsis of the story to sell studios. It's basically the story packed into a single sentence that studios can grok as to what they're signing up for before they fund the movie. In the case of Jaws, is an iconically famous one. When a killer shark unleashes chaos on a beach community, it's up to a local sheriff, a marine biologist, and an old seafarer to hunt the beast down. So that is sort of a literal description of what transpires in the movie. It's also not a tagline, which is designed to clarify the story for dramatic effect. Now, the iconic one in cinematic history is the one from Alien. In space, no one can hear you scream. Now, if someone just told you that tagline, you do not need to see the movie to know what is going to transpire. You know that there is going to be horror, it's going to be out of this world, literally, and that you know how you're going to feel when you experience that movie. So that's really the role of the tagline, similarly to how it works in advertising. An insight, on the other hand, is at the nexus of theme and story. If you think of the theme, whether it's revenge, whether it's redemption, whether it's divorce, whether it's a litany of other potential themes, and the story, the who, the what, the where, the when, the how, the why, a range of these different, elements. If you think of the synthesis of those two is where the insight is born, which I'm defining here as a fresh and new perspective that the film inspires. And an example I want to use to illustrate the point here is Groundhog Day. If you think of the theme, it's inescapable monotony. The Bill Murray character is stuck within the same day in upstate, or in Pennsylvania, and he doesn't know why. He's sort of going through the motions, and he doesn't love the experience of doing so. When you think of the story, as he becomes more generous, as he becomes a nicer guy and more selfless, he becomes a better man. So the insight here is that selflessness can free you from the rut you're in. So we got it. We know what the log line is, the tagline, and the insight here is the fresh and new perspective the film inspires. So a note to reader, expect subjectivity. What people take away from a movie is endlessly subjective. It's meant to inspire debate, and in fact, that is the point. Warning, there will be spoilers, but let's jump in. So the first film is Moneyball. Now, this film is nominally about baseball, but really it's about a litany of other issues. It's about going against the grain. It's about challenging the establishment. It's about challenging conventional wisdom. It's an underdog story that involves looking for value where it can be found and ignoring the conventional path. So as I've described it here, the theme is this underdog innovation. They're innovating in search of relevance. They realize that if they play the game by the rules that have always been played, they're going to be totally irrelevant as a franchise. And the story is really about beating the establishment. It's about sticking it to the old way of doing things and proving that they're not the only way and that one can win at the game. So the insight here is that advantage can be unlocked by diverting from established wisdom. So number 2, Jurassic Park. Now, we all know about the theme park from hell, about, the carnage in, dinosaurs running amok in Isla Nublar, I believe it is. But really what it's about is, the theme here is that the genetic engineering. They have a range of philosophical discussion around the ethics of doing what they're doing. And the story is man-made destruction. These dinosaurs did not come out of the sea like Godzilla. They were made in a lab. They were made by humans. And it was that, the arrogance of that orchestration made for absolutely diabolical results. So the insight here is that mankind's hubris is the greatest destructive force on Earth. So this is actually number 4, if we include Groundhog Day, American History X, which is a remarkable film, and it's a great one for a range of different reasons. But what we see here is the toxicity and the futility of being racist in general. We see how the Edward Norton character, for a range of factors, enters into this sort of downward spiral of racism, and he is unable to extricate himself from it until sort of at the end, where he goes to jail. He experiences this degree of redemption. He sees the error of his ways and seeks to break free of them. And the issue with that is that personal transformation is not enough, and that the theme here, that the self-destruction through racism, that's sort of well documented in terms of the story. But the elements of the story here is that the collateral damage of rage, in the fact that personal anger has a ripple effect and can hurt the ones you love. So even when he turns the corner, even when he sees the error of his ways, it results in the downward, the destruction of his relationships, in it causing harm to his sister, his mother, and unfortunately his brother dies in the end. So I think for me, that was what the key takeaway of American History X was. Whiplash, I think this is another interesting film, and why I think it is unique and why I think it's an incredibly important movie is that it grapples with the ethics of pursuing excellence. And you see a pretty combative student-master relationship between these two characters here. But what it does is raise a bunch of questions around the protagonist, the Miles Teller character, and the villain, played by J.K. Simmons, who won the Oscar for this. Often we see like the good and bad as sort of as the yin and the yang. But in this case, it raised a few sort of interesting questions that are a little inconvenient and somewhat uncomfortable to talk about. So if you think of this relentless pursuit of greatness that the young drummer is going through, the Miles Teller character, and the story in terms of the theme. And on the story side, this sociopathic mentor. He's crazy, he's a bully, he's a gaslighter. It's a real toxic relationship. Some of what he does is actually illegal. But in the story, that right at the end, when the Miles Teller character performs a drum solo that is sort of by wide acclamation in the movie, one of the greatest of all time, the insight being that transcendence can lie on the other side of abusive mentoring. Now, it's an inconvenient reality. We don't like talking about it. We like our villains as villains. We like our good guys as good guys. But in this case, there was that needling and that bullying and that inacceptance of anything resembling mediocre was, ridiculed, lampooned, abused. And as a result, it did inspire transcendence. So that, again, you never want to condone it, but that's why I think this movie is interesting. It's not about good. It's not about bad. It's the shades of gray in between. So the key takeaways: movies are insight machines. There's always many to take away from any given movie. Some films have multitudes, and for that reason, I actually steered clear of a range of iconic films by iconic filmmakers. Number 3, bombs can unearth gems. A movie doesn't have to be good to have useful or actionable insights, and I think that's really useful. If you are stuck watching a crappy movie, fear not. Look for the good. Look for the story it tells about the human condition. Look for the story it tells about culture. And the last one, subjectivity is unavoidable. What you experience from a movie is going to be different from someone else, as well as the insights that you identify and that you find useful. And in the spirit of that, I think this quote by perhaps America's greatest living filmmaker: if 1 million people see my movie, I hope they see 1 million different movies. So thanks for your time. I hope you got something out of it. The full deck, if you would like to peruse it, is charlie-quirk.com/Hollywood. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, and best of luck with everything, and see you soon.